I heard my ribs crack under the chair. The sound was wet and sharp, like snapping green branches, and it came from inside my own body. My sister Harper was standing over me, still gripping the wooden dining chair she had just swung at my chest with both hands. I tried to breathe, but nothing worked. My lungs felt deflated, collapsed. Wrong. The kitchen floor was cold against my cheek. Through blurring vision, I saw my mother rush toward us, but not to help me. She was reaching for Harper, asking if she was okay. My father stood frozen by the table, his phone already in his hand, but he was not calling 911. He was calling his lawyer. I tried to say I could not breathe, but the words would not come. Everything went dark. When consciousness returned, I was still on the kitchen floor. Every attempt to inhale sent daggers through my right side. I could only take tiny, shallow sips of air. The pain was unlike anything I had ever experienced, radiating from my ribs through my entire torso. I tried to sit up, and immediately regretted it. The room spun. My father was standing by the window, speaking in low, urgent tones into his phone. I caught fragments. Liability? Family matter? Need advice. My mother was crouched beside Harper, who sat in a chair across the room, crying. Mom was dabbing at a wine stain on Harper's cream-colored dress with a napkin, making soothing sounds. Harper was 25 years old, and our mother was treating her like a toddler who had spilled juice. This was not new. This was the story of our entire lives. I am Lorna, the firstborn. For the first 3 years of my life, I was an only child. My parents had struggled to conceive me, and after I arrived, they assumed I would be their only chance at parenthood. They poured their hopes into me, but their hopes always felt like obligations. I was supposed to be perfect because I was all they had. I learned early to be good, to be quiet, to achieve without complaint. Then Harper came along. The miracle baby. The surprise they had stopped praying for. From the moment she drew her first breath, the entire family dynamic shifted. Harper was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. When Harper threw tantrums, it was because she was spirited. When I expressed any frustration, I was ungrateful. When Harper failed classes, my parents hired tutors and blamed the teachers. When I struggled, they told me to try harder. I went to state college on a combination of scholarships and 2 part-time jobs. Harper got a brand new SUV for her 16th birthday and a credit card with no limit. I moved into a studio apartment after graduation and furnished it with thrift store finds. Harper still lived at home at 25, in a bedroom suite my parents had renovated for her, complete with a walk-in closet and private bathroom. I had worked hard to make peace with this inequality. I told myself it did not matter, that I was building my own life, that their favoritism was their problem, not mine. I became a physical therapist, a job I loved. I rented a nice apartment in the city, 30 miles from my hometown. I had friends, a life. A boyfriend, named Marcus, who actually treated me with respect and kindness. But holidays always pulled me back. This Thanksgiving, I had driven home with Marcus. We had been dating for 8 months, and he had wanted to meet my family. I had warned him they were complicated. But I do not think he truly understood what that meant until we sat down at the dinner table. Dinner had started pleasantly enough. My mother served turkey and all the traditional sides. My father carved the bird. Harper arrived an hour late, which no one commented on. She looked tired, her makeup smudged, her hair unwashed. But Mom and Dad greeted her like she was a celebrity gracing us with her presence. During the meal, Harper casually mentioned she had been let go from her job at the boutique downtown. This was her 3rd job in a year. The first had ended when she simply stopped showing up. The second had ended after she screamed at a customer. And now this one. My parents laughed it off. Dad said the manager was probably intimidated by Harper's initiative. Mom said retail was beneath her anyway. They suggested she take some time to figure out what she really wanted to do. Maybe travel to Europe to find herself. They would cover the costs, of course. I had not meant to say anything. I truly had not, but something inside me snapped. Maybe it was watching my parents enable her for the millionth time. Maybe it was thinking about how I had worked 2 jobs through college while Harper partied. Maybe it was remembering all the times I had covered for her, protected her, and received nothing but scorn in return. I set down my fork and said quietly, "Maybe some accountability would help." The table went silent. Everyone stared at me. Harper's face flushed red. "What did you just say?" "I just think," I continued, trying to keep my voice calm, "that maybe if there were some consequences, it might help you take things more seriously." Harper stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "You think you are so much better than me, don't you? Perfect, Lorna, with your perfect job and your perfect life. You have always been jealous of me." "Harper, I am not jealous. I am just saying that maybe." "Maybe what?" "Maybe I should be more like you. Boring and pathetic and desperate for their approval." She grabbed her wine glass and hurled it at me. I ducked. The glass shattered against the wall behind me, red wine spraying everywhere. "Harper." Marcus half stood, alarmed. "Stay out of this," my father snapped at him. I stood up from the table. My hands were shaking. "I am leaving. This was a mistake." That was when Harper grabbed the chair. I had my back partially turned to her, reaching for my purse on the side table. I heard her grunt with effort and turned just in time to see the wooden dining chair arcing toward me. I tried to move, but there was not enough time. The chair crashed into my right side with sickening force. The crack was so loud. I felt it and heard it simultaneously. My ribs gave way under the impact. The air left my lungs and would not come back. I collapsed. Now, lying on the floor, struggling to breathe, I watched my father hang up his phone. He and my mother exchanged a look I had seen 1,000 times before. It was the look that said, "How do we protect Harper from this?" My father crouched beside me, but did not touch me. "Lorna, you know how your sister gets when you provoke her. This would not have happened if you had just kept quiet." I tried to speak, but could only produce a wheeze. My mother leaned down, her face close to mine. Her voice was cold. "If you tell anyone what really happened here, you will destroy this family. Is that what you want? To ruin your sister's life over an accident?" My father added. "Harper has her whole future ahead of her. You are already established. You have a career. You will be fine. Do not be selfish about this." I stared at them, unable to believe what I was hearing. I could not breathe. Something was seriously wrong inside my body, and they were worried about Harper's future. From the living room, where my parents had sent him during Harper's outburst, Marcus suddenly appeared in the doorway. He took one look at me, crumpled on the floor, gasping, and his face went white. "Oh my God. Lorna." He rushed to my side, pulling out his phone. My father reached for it. "That is not necessary. She just had the wind knocked out of her. She will be fine." Marcus jerked away from him. "She is not fine. Look at her. She can't breathe." He was already dialing. "Yes, I need an ambulance. My girlfriend has been assaulted. She has a serious chest injury and cannot breathe properly." Assaulted. My mother's voice went shrill. "This was an accident. You are blowing this completely out of proportion." But Marcus ignored her, giving our address to the dispatcher. Through my pain and terror, I felt a rush of gratitude for him. He was doing what my own parents would not do. He was trying to save my life. The ambulance sirens grew louder, closer. My mother knelt beside me again. Her eyes were not concerned. They were threatening. She whispered so only I could hear. "If you tell them what really happened, you are dead to me. Do you understand? You will have no family. You will be alone. All because you could not let one comment go." My father stood over us. "Harper has a future. You are already established. Do not be selfish." The paramedics burst through the door. As they loaded me onto a stretcher, every movement sending fresh waves of agony through my chest. I looked back at my family. Harper was still crying, my mother comforting her. My father was speaking to one of the paramedics, probably trying to downplay what had happened. None of them looked at me. Not once. Marcus climbed into the ambulance with me, holding my hand. As we pulled away, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. My parents had made their choice a long time ago, and it had never been me. The ambulance ride was a blur of pain and panic. Every bump in the road felt like someone was driving a knife between my ribs. I could not take a full breath. Each tiny inhale ended abruptly, stopped by a wall of pain. The paramedic, a kind-faced man in his 40s, kept telling me to stay calm, that we were almost there. He put an oxygen mask over my face, but the oxygen did not seem to help. My chest felt wrong, collapsed on one side. Marcus held my hand the entire way, his face pale with worry. The paramedic asked him what had happened. Marcus did not hesitate. Her sister attacked her with a chair, swung it at her chest with full force. Her parents saw the whole thing and told her not to call for help. The paramedic's expression hardened. He made a note on his tablet. At the hospital, everything happened quickly. They wheeled me straight into the emergency room, bypassing the waiting area. A doctor appeared, young and efficient, and began examining me. Even the gentlest touch made me cry out. He ordered x-rays immediately. Possible rib fractures and pneumothorax, he said to the nurse. Let us move fast. They wheeled me to radiology. The x-ray technician was careful, but positioning me for the images was excruciating. I had to hold my arms in certain positions, had to hold my breath when I could barely breathe at all. Tears streamed down my face. Marcus stood outside the room, watching through the window, his hands pressed against the glass. Back in the emergency room bay, the doctor returned with films in hand, and his expression had changed from concerned to grave. He clipped the x-rays to a light board, and I saw my own skeleton glowing white against black. Even I could see the problem. 3 ribs on my right side had clear fracture lines, and there was something else. A darkness on one side of my chest that should not have been there. Lorna, the doctor said, pulling a stool close to my bed. You have 3 fractured ribs. More seriously, one of those fractures has caused a pneumothorax. Part of your lung has collapsed. Do you understand what I am telling you? I nodded, unable to speak. We need to insert a chest tube immediately to reinflate your lung. This is not optional. If we do not do this, your condition could deteriorate rapidly. You could develop tension pneumothorax, which is life-threatening. After we stabilize you, we may need surgery to repair the damage. This is a very serious injury. Surgery. The word seemed unreal. This had happened less than 2 hours ago. I had just been sitting at a Thanksgiving table. They gave me local anesthetic, but I still felt everything as they made an incision between my ribs and threaded a tube into my chest cavity. The sensation was horrifying, foreign, violating. I sobbed through it. Marcus stood at the head of my bed, holding my hand, murmuring that I was doing great, that it was almost over. When the tube was in place and connected to suction, I heard a horrible gurgling sound. The doctor said, that was good. That was air and fluid being pulled out. Within minutes, breathing became slightly easier. Not easy, but possible. A nurse came in, a woman in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a bun. Her name tag read Beth. She adjusted my IV, checked my vitals, and then pulled a chair close. Honey, she said gently, I need to ask you some questions. The paramedics reported that this was an assault. Is that correct? I hesitated. My parents' threats echoed in my mind. You will have no family. You will be alone. Marcus spoke up. Yes, her sister hit her with a chair. Her parents witnessed it and told Lorna to lie about it. Beth's jaw tightened. She looked at me with eyes that had clearly seen too much suffering. Lorna, I have been a nurse for 22 years. I have worked in this emergency room for most of that time. I know what assault looks like. And I know what family violence looks like. I am a mandatory reporter, which means I am legally required to document this. Do you understand? I nodded, fresh tears spilling over. Can you tell me what happened? Her voice was kind but firm. So I told her. I told her about dinner, about Harper throwing the wine glass, about me trying to leave, about the chair, about my parents' reaction, about their threats in the ambulance. Beth listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she squeezed my hand. You did nothing to deserve this, she said. Nothing. What happened to you is called aggravated assault. It is a serious crime. And what your parents did, trying to cover it up, that is also a crime. I am going to make sure everything is documented. Photographs, statements, medical evidence, all of it. The hospital needed to call my emergency contacts. I had listed my parents, because who else do you list? The nurse made the call from the phone at the station just outside my room. I could hear my mother's voice through the receiver, shrill and defensive. She is always so dramatic, my mother said, loud enough for me to catch the words. I am sure she is exaggerating. You know how some people are. They thrive on attention. Beth's expression remained professional, but I saw the muscle in her jaw tick. Mom, your daughter has 3 fractured ribs and a collapsed lung. She may require surgery. This is life-threatening. There was a pause. Then my mother said, well, she probably provoked Harper. My younger daughter would never do something like that unprovoked. Lorna has always known how to push her buttons. Beth closed her eyes briefly, as if praying for patience. Mom, your daughter is seriously injured. Will you be coming to the hospital? I will have to see. We are dealing with a very upsetting situation here. Harper is beside herself. Beth hung up without saying goodbye. She came back to my bedside and said, quietly, I am so sorry. I already knew they were not coming. Some part of me had always known that if I ever truly needed them, they would not be there. Marcus, who had been listening to all of this, looked stunned. I recorded everything, he said suddenly. At your parents' house. I had my phone in my pocket. I turned on the voice recorder when things started getting tense. I have Harper throwing the glass, Harper screaming threats, and I have your parents telling you to lie. I have all of it. Beth's eyes widened. You need to give that to the police. That is evidence. The police, I whispered. The idea terrified me. Yes, Beth said firmly. This was not an accident. This was a violent crime. You could have died. You still could, if complications develop. As if summoned by her words, the doctor returned with another person. An older man in surgical scrubs. Lorna? This is Dr. Patterson. He is a thoracic surgeon. We need to talk about your lung. Dr. Patterson pulled up a stool. His face was serious. The chest tube is helping, but your lung is not reinflating as well as we would like. The rib fracture has caused some tearing to the lung tissue itself. We need to go in surgically to repair it, and make sure there are no bone fragments near your organs. This needs to happen soon. How soon? Marcus asked. Within the next few hours. We are prepping an operating room now. Is this dangerous? I managed to ask. Dr. Patterson met my eyes. All surgery carries risks. But Lorna, I need you to understand something. The injury you sustained is severe. If you had been hit slightly differently, or if you had waited even another hour to seek help, you might not have survived. Someone did this to you intentionally. I nodded. His expression turned cold. Then someone tried to kill you. Whether they meant to or not, the level of force required to cause this damage is extreme. This was not an accident. After he left to prepare for surgery, Beth returned with someone new. A woman in plain clothes with a badge clipped to her belt. Lorna, this is Detective Sandra Reeves. She would like to speak with you, if you are up to it. Detective Reeves was in her 40s, with short, dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything. She pulled up a chair and opened a small notebook. I know you are in pain, and about to go into surgery, so I will keep this brief. Can you tell me what happened tonight? I told the story again. It was getting easier, in a horrible way, to say the words out loud. Harper hit me with a chair. My parents told me to lie. Detective Reeves took notes, her expression neutral, but attentive. When I finished, she said, "With the medical evidence here, the witness testimony from Marcus, and the recording he has, we have enough to arrest your sister on charges of aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury. But I need you to decide if you want to press charges. I cannot force you. This has to be your choice. They are my family," I whispered. "I know," Detective Reeves said gently, "and that makes this harder, not easier. But Lorna, family does not do this. Family does not try to kill you and then tell you to cover it up. I have been a detective for 18 years. I have seen a lot of family violence. This is one of the worst cases I have encountered. Not just because of the injury, but because of how your parents responded. They chose your abuser over you. They are still choosing her." I looked at Marcus. He was watching me with worried eyes. "I will support whatever you decide," he said. "But Lorna, I love you, and I cannot watch you let people destroy you. If you do not press charges, I understand. But I need to be honest. I cannot be with someone who will not protect herself. Because someday, we might have kids. And I need to know you would protect them too." His words hit me like cold water. He was right. If I let this go, what was I teaching any future children? That violence is acceptable if it comes from family? That you should protect your abusers? Before I could respond, the doctor came back in with new X-ray films. "Lorna, I wanted to show you something else we found." He clipped up another image. "These are older fractures. Right here. And here. These ribs were broken before and healed incorrectly. When did these injuries happen?" I stared at the images, and suddenly I remembered. I was 19, home from my first year of college. Harper had been angry about something. I could not even remember what. She had pushed me down the stairs. I had landed hard, could not breathe right for weeks. My parents said I was clumsy, that I should be more careful. They had not taken me to the hospital. And another time, when I was 22, Harper had slammed a car door on my hand in a parking lot during an argument. My parents said it was an accident, that Harper had not seen my hand there. But I remembered the look in her eyes. She had seen. "I think," I said slowly, "my sister has hurt me before. But my parents always said it was an accident, that I was clumsy or careless." Detective Reeves and Beth exchanged a look. "So this is a pattern," Detective Reeves said, "not an isolated incident. That strengthens the case significantly. A pattern. Not isolated incidents, but a pattern. My sister had been hurting me for years, and my parents had been covering for her, enabling her, teaching her that violence had no consequences." I looked at Detective Reeves. My voice was steady when I spoke. "I want to press charges." They wheeled me to surgery at 11 o'clock that night. I was terrified. I had never had surgery before, never been put under anesthesia. Marcus walked beside the gurney as far as they would let him, squeezing my hand. "I will be right here when you wake up," he promised. The anesthesiologist was a calm woman who explained everything she was doing. She said I would feel sleepy, that I should count backward from 10. I made it to 7 before the world disappeared. I woke up in stages. First, there was pain, distant and muffled, then voices, blurry and echoing. Then light, too bright. Then Marcus' face, swimming into focus above me. "There you are," he said softly. "You did great. The surgery went well. I was in a recovery room, then moved to the ICU. I had tubes everywhere. The chest tube was still in place. I had an IV in each arm, a catheter, a blood pressure cuff that automatically inflated every 15 minutes. I could not move without setting off alarm bells of pain. They gave me medication that made everything hazy and strange. The surgery had taken 4 hours. The surgeon, Dr. Patterson, came to check on me in the ICU. He explained that they had repaired the tear in my lung tissue, removed several small bone fragments that had been dangerously close to puncturing the lung further, and stabilized the fractures. "You are going to be in significant pain for a while," he said. "Rib fractures take weeks to heal, and you cannot cast ribs the way you would cast a broken arm. You will just have to let time do its work." Marcus stayed in the chair beside my bed. He looked exhausted. I asked him what time it was, and he said 6 in the morning. I had lost an entire night. "Have my parents called?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. His face darkened. "The hospital called them after your surgery to let them know you made it through and that you were stable. Your mother said, 'That's good,' and hung up." That was it. No flowers, no cards, no visits. My parents knew I had just had emergency surgery, that I had nearly died, and they could not even be bothered to show up, because doing so would mean acknowledging what Harper had done. It would mean choosing me, and they had never chosen me. Marcus told me that Harper had not tried to contact me either. "Though I blocked her number on your phone while you were in surgery," he admitted. "I hope that is okay." "It is more than okay," I whispered. Beth, the nurse from the emergency room, stopped by during her morning shift even though the ICU was not her usual floor. She brought me a small stuffed bear. "I know you are too old for stuffed animals," she said with a small smile. "But I thought you could use a friend. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," I said. "That is about right." She checked my chart, adjusted some settings on one of my monitors. Then she pulled up a chair. "I filed a report with the police and with Adult Protective Services last night. I also made sure everything was thoroughly documented in your medical file. Photographs of the injuries, detailed notes about the mechanism of injury, statements from you and Marcus. It is all there. No one can make it disappear." "Thank you," I said, and meant it. "I also want you to know," Beth continued, "that I have been doing this job for 22 years. I have seen a lot of terrible things, a lot of violence, a lot of family dysfunction. But this is one of the worst cases I have encountered, not because of the injury itself, though that is severe, but because of how your parents responded. The force required to break 3 ribs and puncture a lung with a chair? That is tremendous. That is someone swinging with intent to cause serious harm. And your parents witnessed it and told you to cover it up. That is evil." I do not use that word lightly. Her bluntness was oddly comforting. Everyone else had been gentle, careful. But Beth was telling me the truth. What happened was not normal. It was not excusable. It was evil. Detective Reeves came by later that morning. She had a folder with her. "I wanted to update you on where things stand. Based on the medical evidence, Marcus witness testimony and recording, and the hospital's report, we have enough to arrest your sister, but I need your formal statement to proceed with charges. Are you still willing to press charges?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. She smiled. It was a small, sad smile. "Good. I was hoping you would say that. I will need you to give a recorded statement when you are feeling up to it. It does not have to be today. You just had major surgery. But soon. What will happen to her?" I asked. "She will be charged with aggravated assault, causing serious bodily injury. In this state, that is a second-degree felony. If convicted, she could face 2 to 20 years in prison. Given the severity of your injuries and the fact that you nearly died, I expect the DA will push for the higher end of that range. 20 years. The number seemed impossible. Harper was 25. She could be in prison until she was 45. But then I thought about the crack of my ribs, the sensation of drowning because my lung would not work, my parents' cold eyes as they told me to protect her, and I felt no guilt. "Okay," I said. While Detective Reeves was there, my phone buzzed repeatedly. Marcus picked it up and his face went pale. "Lorna, You are getting a lot of texts from your mom. Read them to me, I said. He hesitated, then started reading. How could you involve the police? You are tearing this family apart. Your sister made a mistake. We all make mistakes. You are being vindictive and cruel. If you press charges, you are no longer our daughter. We will not pay for a lawyer if Harper sues you for defamation. Think carefully about what you are doing. You are destroying your sister's future over one moment of anger. Each message was a knife. But I also felt something unexpected. Relief. They were showing me exactly who they were. No more pretending. No more excuses. They were choosing Harper, fully and completely. And that meant I was finally free to choose myself. My father sent a single text. Think about the consequences. We will not support you if you do this. I looked at Detective Reeves. Does this count as witness intimidation? She raised an eyebrow. It absolutely does. May I take screenshots? Marcus handed her the phone. She documented every message, then handed the phone back. These people are digging their own grave. They are making my job very easy. After she left, Marcus sat on the edge of my bed, careful not to jostle me. I need to tell you something, he said. I love you, Lorna. I know we have only been together for 8 months, but I have never been more sure of anything. Watching you make the decision to press charges, even though it cost you your family, that was the bravest thing I have ever seen. I am not going anywhere. I am with you through all of this. I started crying, which hurt my ribs terribly, but I could not stop. For the first time in my life, someone was choosing me, not out of obligation, not out of pity, but out of genuine love and respect. Dr. Patterson came by on his afternoon rounds. He reviewed my charts and seemed pleased with my progress. The lung is reinflating nicely. We will keep you here for several more days to monitor you, but I think you will make a full recovery. You are young and healthy. That works in your favor. Then he paused, looking at the x-rays again. I wanted to mention something. When we were reviewing your films, we noticed some older injuries, previous rib fractures that healed incorrectly. They are not recent, probably several years old. Can you tell me about those? I told him about the stairs, about the car door, about my parents saying I was clumsy. His expression hardened. Those were not accidents. The fracture patterns are not consistent with falls or accidents. They are consistent with direct trauma. Blunt force. Lorna, your sister has been abusing you for years, and your parents have been covering it up. I did not see it that way before, I admitted. I thought I was just unlucky, accident-prone. You were not unlucky. You were being abused. There is a difference. He made notes in my chart. I am adding this to your medical record. It establishes a pattern of violence. If this goes to court, it will be important. When he left, I lay in my hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. My entire life had been reframed in the span of 24 hours. All those accidents were not accidents. All those times Harper had hurt me and I had apologized for being in her way, for provoking her, for existing wrong. None of it had been my fault. I had spent 28 years believing I was the problem, that if I just tried harder, behaved better, achieved more, my parents would love me the way they loved Harper. But the truth was simpler and more painful. They had chosen Harper from the moment she was born. Nothing I did or did not do would have changed that. The problem was never me. Marcus must have seen something change in my face. What are you thinking? I am thinking, I said slowly, that I should have done this years ago. I spent 8 days in the hospital. Each day brought small improvements. The chest tube came out on day 3, which was a relief but also painful. My lung was functioning on its own again. The pain in my ribs was still intense, but the medication kept it manageable. I could sit up without screaming. I could take short walks around the ICU with Marcus supporting me. On the 3rd day, Detective Reeves came by to take my formal statement. She brought a recording device and a victim's advocate, a kind woman named Lisa, who sat beside me and held my hand while I talked. I told the whole story again, every detail I could remember. The recording took over an hour. When it was done, Detective Reeves said, "Thank you. This is exactly what we need. We will be arresting your sister today." The arrest happened that afternoon. I was not there, of course, but Detective Reeves called me that evening to tell me it had been done. Harper had been at her apartment. She had answered the door in pajamas, apparently surprised to see police. She had been taken into custody without incident and was being held pending arraignment. She was charged with aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury, a second-degree felony. "How did she react?" I asked. "She cried a lot. Said it was an accident, that she did not mean to hurt you, that you had provoked her." The usual deflection tactics. Her parents showed up at the station with a lawyer within 2 hours. They posted her bail. She is out now, but she has a court date next week. Out on bail, that meant Harper was free, walking around, while I was still in a hospital bed recovering from what she had done to me. The injustice of it stung, but Detective Reeves assured me that Harper was under strict orders to have no contact with me. If she violated that, she would go straight back to jail. The next morning, my parents showed up at the hospital. It was the first time I had seen them since Thanksgiving. I was sitting up in bed, slowly eating bland oatmeal, when they walked into my ICU room. No flowers, no balloons, no apology, just anger. My father's face was red. "How could you do this to your sister? Do you have any idea what you have done?" Marcus stood up from his chair. "I think you two need to leave. Stay out of this," my mother snapped. She turned to me. "Harper has been arrested. She has a criminal record now. Do you understand what you have done to her future?" I stared at them. "Do you understand what she did to my ribs? To my lung? I almost died." "You are fine," my father said dismissively. "You are sitting up, eating breakfast. You are being dramatic." "I had emergency surgery," I said, my voice shaking. "I had a tube in my chest. I could not breathe. She could have killed me." "It was an accident," my mother insisted. "She did not mean to hurt you. You provoked her. You always know exactly what to say to set her off." "So it is my fault?" I asked. "I made her hit me with a chair." "You need to drop the charges," my father said. "This is destroying our family. Your sister could go to prison. Is that what you want? To destroy your own sister's life?" "She destroyed mine first," I said quietly. My mother's face twisted with rage. "You selfish, vindictive little brat. You have always been jealous of Harper. This is your revenge, is not it? You finally found a way to hurt her." Marcus moved to stand between them and my bed. "That is enough. Get out. Now. You are nothing but a parasite who latched onto our daughter." My father spat at him. "This is family business. I am going to marry your daughter," Marcus said calmly. "And when I do, you will not be invited. Because you are not family. Family does not do what you have done. Now get out before I call security." My mother turned to me one last time. "If you go through with this, if you testify against your sister, you are dead to us. Do you understand? Dead. You will have no family. No one. You will be completely alone. Is that what you want?" I met her eyes. Something had broken inside me during those 8 days in the hospital. Some chain that had bound me to them, to their approval, to the desperate hope that they would love me. It had snapped cleanly, and I felt lighter without it. "I already have no family," I said. "I have not had one for a very long time. I just did not want to see it." My father grabbed my mother's arm. "Let's go. She has made her choice." "I wish I had never had you," my mother hissed as they left. "You have been nothing but a disappointment." After they left, I broke down. Not because of their words, but because of the relief. It was over. The pretending, the hoping, the trying, all of it was over. They had finally said out loud what I had always known in my heart. They did not love me. They never had. Marcus held me while I cried, careful of my injuries. I am so sorry, he kept saying. I am so sorry. I am not, I said through my tears. I should have done this years ago. News of the arrest spread quickly through my small hometown. By the end of the week, my phone was flooded with messages. Most of them were hateful. Old family friends accused me of being a liar, of framing Harper, of being vindictive and jealous. My aunt sent a long message about how I was tearing the family apart and should be ashamed. My grandmother called me ungrateful and cruel. But then something unexpected happened. My cousin Jenna, who I had not spoken to in years, sent me a message. I believe you. Harper has always been violent. When we were kids, she locked me in a closet for 6 hours because I beat her at a board game. Your parents found me and told me not to tell anyone. They said it would embarrass Harper. I am sorry I did not speak up sooner. If you need someone to testify, I will. Then a woman I vaguely remembered from high school reached out. Harper bullied me mercilessly when we were 15. She once keyed my car because I got a better grade than her on a test. I could never prove it, but I knew it was her. Everyone knew she was cruel, but your parents always protected her. I believe you. More messages came. A former teacher who remembered Harper's violent outbursts. A neighbor who had witnessed Harper throwing things and screaming. A coworker from one of her jobs who said Harper had threatened her. The picture that emerged was clear. Harper had always been like this, violent, cruel, entitled. And our parents had covered for her at every turn, making excuses, blaming her victims. I was not the only one she had hurt. I was just the first one to refuse to stay silent. A victim's advocate connected me with a lawyer named Patricia Hughes who specialized in family violence cases. Patricia came to see me in the hospital on my 7th day there. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled into a professional bun. She reviewed all my medical records, listened to Marcus' recording, and read through the statements. You have an incredibly strong case, she said. The medical evidence alone is damning, but with the recording, the witness testimony, the pattern of previous abuse, and the fact that your parents tried to cover it up, this is about as open and shut as it gets. Will she go to prison? I asked. If she is convicted, yes. Almost certainly. The question is for how long. Given the severity of your injuries and the fact that you nearly died, I would expect at least 3 to 5 years, possibly more. Patricia explained that I could also pursue a civil case against Harper for medical expenses, lost wages, and pain and suffering. Your medical bills are going to be substantial. Surgery, 8 days in the hospital, months of recovery, physical therapy. You will not be able to work for a while. You deserve compensation for that. What about my parents? I asked. Patricia's eyebrows rose. What about them? They witnessed the attack and told me to cover it up. They have been threatening me to drop the charges. Is that legal? No, Patricia said flatly. That is witness intimidation and conspiracy after the fact. If you want to pursue charges against them as well, we can explore that. The thought was overwhelming. Sue my parents? But then I thought about their faces in my hospital room, about my mother wishing I had never been born, about my father saying Harper's future mattered more than my life. And I thought, why not? Let me think about it, I said. 2 days later, Harper's lawyer reached out to Patricia with a plea deal offer. Harper would plead guilty to simple assault, a misdemeanor instead of a felony. She would serve no jail time, just probation and anger management classes. In exchange, I would have to agree not to pursue any civil case against her, and eventually her record could be expunged. Patricia called me to discuss it. They are betting that you will cave, that you will choose family peace over justice. They think you will take the easy way out. I thought about Marcus' words, about protecting future children, about teaching them that violence has consequences, about not being an accomplice to my own destruction. No deal, I said. We are going to trial. I was released from the hospital on day 8. Going home to my apartment felt surreal. Everything looked the same, but I was completely different. I could not lift anything heavier than a coffee mug. I could not dress myself without help. I could not sleep lying down because of the pain in my ribs. So Marcus set up a nest of pillows on the couch where I slept semi-reclined. I had to take short, shallow breaths. Laughing hurt. Sneezing was agony. I could not work. I was a physical therapist, a job that required me to support patients, demonstrate exercises, and be on my feet for hours. I was on complete medical leave for at least 3 months, possibly longer. The lost income was devastating. Even with insurance, my medical bills were staggering. The surgery alone had cost over $80,000. The hospital stay, the ICU, the medications, the chest tube, all of it added up to over $120,000. Insurance covered most of it, but my out-of-pocket maximum was still $12,000. Money I did not have. Marcus took time off work to care for me. He helped me shower, helped me dress, made me meals. He drove me to follow-up appointments with Dr. Patterson and to my new appointments with a physical therapist who specialized in post-surgical recovery. He never complained, never made me feel like a burden. I had never known love like this. I also started seeing a therapist. The victim's advocate had recommended Dr. Ellen Marsh, a counselor who specialized in family trauma and abuse. Dr. Marsh had an office in a quiet building downtown, with comfortable chairs and soft lighting. She was in her early 60s, with kind eyes and a calm presence. In our first session, I told her everything. The lifetime of being second best. Harper's violence, my parents' enablement, the attack, the hospital, the arrest, all of it. When I finished, Dr. Marsh said, "Lorna, I want to name something for you. What you have described is a classic family scapegoat dynamic. In families with narcissistic parents, there is often a golden child and a scapegoat. The golden child can do no wrong. The scapegoat can do no right. The golden child is protected and enabled, no matter what. The scapegoat is blamed and criticized, no matter what." Does that resonate with you? It resonated so deeply, I started crying. Over the following weeks, Dr. Marsh helped me understand the patterns. Harper had learned from our parents that violence had no consequences, that she could hurt people and be protected. I had learned that my pain did not matter, that I should minimize it, that protecting the family peace was more important than protecting myself. These were not accidents. These were learned behaviors, passed down and reinforced over decades. "You did not just break your ribs," Dr. Marsh said in one session. "You broke the family system that required your silence. That is why they are so angry. You stopped playing your role. You refuse to be the scapegoat anymore, and that threatens the entire structure they have built." This understanding was both devastating and liberating. Devastating because it meant I had wasted years trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it. Liberating because it meant none of this was my fault. I had not done anything wrong. I had simply been born into a sick system. Meanwhile, Patricia was building our case. She subpoenaed all of my medical records going back 10 years. She found documentation of the fall down the stairs, the car door injury, several other suspicious bruises and sprains. She hired a forensic specialist, a doctor, who analyzed the pattern of injuries and concluded they were consistent with ongoing abuse, not accidents. She interviewed Marcus extensively, getting every detail of what he had witnessed and recorded. She interviewed Beth, the nurse, who testified about my condition when I arrived at the hospital and about my parents' callous response. She interviewed Detective Reeves, who testified about the arrest and Harper's statements. Patricia also tracked down other people Harper had hurt. She found Harper's ex-boyfriend, a man named Derek, who had dated her 2 years ago. Derek came to Patricia's office and shared photos of bruises Harper had given him. He had texts where Harper threatened him, told him she would kill him if he left her. He had been too ashamed to report it at the time. "I thought no one would believe me," he said, "that they would say I was weak for letting a woman abuse me. But when I saw the news about what she did to you, I knew I had to come forward." My cousin Jenna gave a deposition. She described the closet incident, described years of Harper's cruelty, described how our parents had always made excuses. I stopped going to family gatherings because of Harper, Jenna said. She is dangerous. She has always been dangerous. Patricia also deposed my parents. They had to come to her office and answer questions under oath. I was not present, but Patricia recorded it and showed me parts of it later. Watching my parents squirm under questioning was painful and satisfying in equal measure. Patricia asked my father, "Did you witness Harper strike Lorna with a chair?" "I saw an altercation," he said carefully. "Did you see your daughter Harper swing a chair at your daughter Lorna?" A long pause. "Yes." "And what did you do?" "I called my lawyer." "Did you call 911? "No." "Did you try to help Lorna?" "I thought she was being dramatic." "Your daughter could not breathe, and you thought she was being dramatic." "Harper is sensitive. Lorna knows how to provoke her. So you are saying Lorna deserved to be hit with a chair?" "I am saying she should have been more careful." Patricia asked my mother, "Did you tell Lorna to lie about what happened?" My mother hesitated. "I told her to think about the family." "Did you tell her not to tell the hospital or police what really happened?" "I told her not to overreact." "Your daughter had 3 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. How is that an overreaction?" "Lorna has always been difficult. Harper is sensitive. Lorna should have known better than to criticize her." Watching them say these things under oath was like watching strangers. These were not my parents. Or maybe they were, and I had just never wanted to see it. The deposition included a question I had not expected. Patricia asked, "Are you aware that Lorna has evidence of previous injuries consistent with abuse?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "She was clumsy as a child. She has rib fractures from 6 years ago. The medical examiner believes they were caused by blunt force trauma, not a fall." "What can you tell me about that?" "I do not remember." "You do not remember your daughter having broken ribs?" "If she did, it was an accident." Patricia leaned forward. "How many accidents does one person have before you start to see a pattern?" My father had no answer. 1 week before the trial was scheduled to begin, Patricia got a phone call. Harper's old roommate from college, a woman named Amanda, had seen news coverage of the case. She had something to share. Amanda came to Patricia's office with a diary. She had kept journals throughout college, and she had found an entry from 6 years ago. Patricia called me to come in and hear it. Amanda read aloud, her voice shaking slightly. November 15th. Harper came home tonight bragging about putting her sister in her place. She said Lorna was visiting and being judgmental as always. Harper said she pushed her down the stairs and Lorna ended up in the ER, but Harper was laughing about it. She said her parents told everyone Lorna was clumsy and fell. She said they always cover for her, that she can do whatever she wants. I should say something, but I am afraid of Harper. She has been violent with me too. Last week she threw a book at my head because I asked her to do the dishes. The room was silent when Amanda finished reading. This was proof. Written proof. Dated and contemporary to the injury. Proof that Harper had intentionally hurt me, that my parents had covered it up, and that Harper had bragged about it. Patricia looked at me. This changes everything. This establishes premeditation, pattern, and parental conspiracy. We are not just talking about one incident anymore. We are talking about years of abuse. Amanda agreed to testify. Patricia filed the diary as evidence. Harper's defense attorney tried to get it excluded, arguing it was hearsay, but the judge ruled it was admissible as a contemporaneous record and as evidence of Harper's state of mind. The trial date was set for early March, 3 months after the attack. I was healing physically by then. I could breathe without pain, could sleep lying down, could dress myself. The scars were fading, but the emotional wounds were still raw. One evening, in late February, Marcus took me out to dinner. We went to a quiet Italian restaurant, the kind with dim lighting and candles on the tables. After we ordered, he reached across the table and took my hand. "I have been thinking a lot about the future," he said. "About our future, and I know the timing is terrible. I know you are about to go through a trial and everything is awful right now. But I also know that life does not wait for the perfect moment. And I do not want to wait anymore." He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple, beautiful ring. "Lorna, I love you. I have seen you at your absolute worst, your most broken. And you are still the strongest person I know. You fight, even when it costs you everything. You tell the truth even when it would be easier to lie. I want to spend my life with someone like that. Will you marry me?" I said yes through tears. He slipped the ring on my finger, and I thought about how strange it was that in the middle of the worst period of my life, I had also found the best thing that had ever happened to me. We did not set a date, the trial had to come first, but knowing I had that future waiting, that promise of something good, made the present more bearable. The night before the trial, I could not sleep. I lay in bed next to Marcus, staring at the ceiling, thinking about walking into that courtroom, about seeing Harper, about seeing my parents, about telling my story to a room full of strangers, about being cross-examined, picked apart, disbelieved. Dr. Marsh had prepared me for this. She had warned me it would be traumatic, that I would be re-traumatized by having to relive everything. But she had also reminded me why I was doing it. Not for revenge, but for justice. Not to hurt Harper, but to stop her from hurting others, and to prove to myself that I mattered, that my life had value, that violence was not acceptable, even when it came from family. I reached over and took Marcus' hand in the dark. He squeezed back. "Awake too." "Tomorrow," I whispered. "Tomorrow," he agreed. But you are not alone. I was not alone. For the first time in my life, I was not alone. The courthouse was a massive stone building downtown, all columns and marble and echoing hallways. I walked in on a cold March morning with Marcus on one side and Patricia on the other. I was wearing a simple navy dress and low heels. I had left my hair down to look softer, more sympathetic. Patricia had coached me on these details. Perception mattered in trials. My ribs still ached when I moved wrong, and I wore a support brace under my dress. Patricia said not to hide it. Let the jury see that I was still injured, still healing. Let them see the physical evidence of what Harper had done. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, rows of benches, the judge's bench elevated at the front. Harper sat at the defense table with her attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. She was wearing a pale pink dress, her hair pulled back in a demure bun. She looked young and innocent and fragile. It was a costume. Behind the defense table sat my parents. My mother was crying softly, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. My father's jaw was set, his expression cold. When I walked in, they both looked at me, with pure hatred. I forced myself to look away. The jury filed in. 12 people who would decide Harper's fate. 7 women, 5 men. A mix of ages and races. They looked ordinary, like people you would pass on the street, but they held all the power. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. Judge Catherine Morgan. She had a reputation for being fair but strict. Patricia had been pleased when we drew her. The prosecution went first. The district attorney was a woman named Rachel Torres, mid-40s, with dark hair and a commanding presence. Patricia had worked with her before and said she was excellent. Rachel stood and addressed the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about violence. Deliberate, intentional violence. The defendant, Harper Collins, struck her sister Lorna with a wooden dining chair, with such force that she broke 3 of Lorna's ribs and punctured her lung. Lorna nearly died. She required emergency surgery. She spent 8 days in the hospital. She will carry the scars of this attack for the rest of her life." Rachel clicked a remote, and the large screen behind her lit up. X-ray images appeared. My ribs, white against black, with clear fracture lines. The dark shadow where my lung had collapsed. The jury visibly reacted. Several people grimaced. One woman put her hand over her mouth, These are Lorna's injuries, Rachel continued. This is what the defendant did to her own sister over a comment at Thanksgiving dinner. The defense will try to tell you this was self-defense, that Lorna provoked this attack. But I ask you to look at these images and ask yourself, what words could possibly justify this level of violence? She clicked again. Another image appeared. A photo of me in the ICU, unconscious, tubes everywhere. I had not known this photo existed. Seeing it made my stomach turn. This is Lorna, after surgery, Rachel said, fighting for her life because her sister attacked her and her parents told her to lie about it. This is not a family dispute, this is attempted murder, the defense attorney objected. Objection, Your Honor, that is inflammatory and not supported by the charges. Judge Morgan sustained it. The jury will disregard that last statement. Ms. Torres, stick to the charges as filed. My apologies, Your Honor. Rachel turned back to the jury. The defendant is charged with aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury. Over the next few days, you will hear from witnesses who were there. You will hear recordings of what happened. You will hear from medical experts about the severity of Lorna's injuries, and you will hear from Lorna herself. At the end of all that, I am confident you will see the truth. The defendant is guilty. Thank you. The defense attorney, Mr. Brennan, stood for his opening statement. He was smooth, confident. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened on Thanksgiving was tragic. No one disputes that. Lorna was injured, and that is terrible. But this was not a deliberate attack. This was a family argument that escalated out of control. My client, Harper, was defending herself against verbal and emotional abuse from her older sister. Lorna has bullied Harper their entire lives. She is jealous of Harper's relationship with their parents. On Thanksgiving, Lorna once again criticized and belittled Harper. Harper reacted in self-defense. Was it the right reaction? No. Was it an overreaction? Yes. But it was not criminal. It was a family dispute that belongs in family therapy, not a courtroom. Harper deeply regrets what happened. But she is not a criminal. She is a victim of her sister's abuse, who reacted poorly in one moment. That does not make her guilty of a felony. I felt sick listening to him twist the truth. But Patricia had warned me this would happen. The defense would paint me as the villain. I had to stay calm. The prosecution called their first witness, the forensic specialist, Dr. Richard Huang. He was an older man with gray hair and glasses. A doctor who specialized in analyzing injuries. He walked the jury through the X-rays, explaining exactly what it would take to cause that level of damage. These are significant fractures, Dr. Huang said, using a laser pointer on the screen. 3 ribs broken, 1 partially puncturing the lung. To cause this level of injury requires tremendous force. This is not something that happens from a shove or a push. This is blunt force trauma from a heavy object, swung with intent. Can you estimate how much force would be required? Rachel asked. Based on the fracture patterns and the victim's build, I would estimate at least 50 to 70 pounds of force, delivered in a focused impact. That is equivalent to being hit by a baseball bat swung at moderate speed. Could this be an accident? No. The angle and location of the injuries are not consistent with an accidental impact. This was a deliberate strike to the torso. On cross-examination, Mr. Brennan tried to poke holes. Doctor, is it possible my client simply swung the chair defensively and did not intend to cause this level of harm? Intent is not my area of expertise, Dr. Huang said, but I can tell you that the force required to cause these injuries is significant. You do not accidentally generate that much force. Next, Rachel called Marcus to the stand. He was nervous. I could tell, but he spoke clearly and calmly. He described Thanksgiving dinner, Harper throwing the wine glass, me trying to leave, and Harper grabbing the chair. What did you hear? Rachel asked. I heard Harper scream. I will kill you. You have always been the favorite. I hate you. And then I heard a crash, and Lorna gasping. And then what happened? I ran back into the kitchen. Lorna was on the floor, unable to breathe. Harper was still holding the chair. Their parents were not helping Lorna. They were comforting Harper. Rachel played the audio recording Marcus had made. The jury listened in silence. You could hear everything: Harper's screaming, the crash, my gasping, and most damning, my mother saying, "Clean this up. We will say she fell." Several jury members looked shocked. One older man shook his head. On cross-examination, Mr. Brennan tried to discredit Marcus. "You are engaged to Lorna, correct? You have a vested interest in her version of events being believed." "I have an interest in the truth," Marcus said. "I love Lorna, yes, but I recorded what I recorded. You can hear it yourself. You only started recording after the argument began. We do not know what Lorna said to provoke Harper. Lorna said maybe accountability would help. That is all. That does not justify attempted murder." "Objection!" Mr. Brennan shouted. Judge Morgan sustained it and instructed the jury to disregard the comment. Beth, the nurse, testified next. She described my condition when I arrived at the emergency room, the severity of my injuries, and the fact that I nearly died. "I have been an ER nurse for 22 years, she said. "I have seen a lot of trauma. This was one of the worst cases of family violence I have encountered. Not just because of the injuries, but because of how her family responded. Her parents called the hospital and said she was being dramatic. Even after we told them she might not survive surgery, they did not come to see her." There was an audible gasp from some jury members. Harper's ex-boyfriend, Derek, testified about his experience with Harper's violence. He showed photos of bruises, read threatening texts. Mr. Brennan objected repeatedly, arguing it was not relevant, but Judge Morgan allowed it to establish a pattern of behavior. My cousin Jenna testified about the closet incident, about years of Harper's cruelty. "I was terrified of her as a child," Jenna said. "We all were. But her parents always protected her. They made excuses. They blamed us for provoking her." Then Amanda, the college roommate, testified. She read from her diary, the entry about Harper bragging about pushing me down the stairs. The courtroom was utterly silent. Finally, it was my turn. Rachel called me to the stand. I walked up on shaking legs, was sworn in, and sat down. The courtroom felt enormous. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Rachel started with easy questions. My name, my age, my job. She established that I was Harper's older sister, that we had grown up in the same house. Then she asked me to describe Thanksgiving. I told the story as clearly as I could. Dinner, Harper's job announcement, my comment about accountability, Harper throwing the glass, me trying to leave, and then the chair. I described the sound of my ribs cracking, the inability to breathe, my parents' reaction. "What did your parents say to you while you were on the floor?" Rachel asked. "They said I should not call the police, that I would ruin Harper's life, that she had a future and I was already established, so I should not be selfish." "How did that make you feel?" "Like I did not matter. Like my life was worth less than Harper's reputation." Rachel showed the x-rays again. "Lorna, when you saw these images, what went through your mind?" "I thought about how close I came to dying, and I thought about how my parents would rather have me dead than have Harper face consequences." Mr. Brennan's cross-examination was brutal. He tried to paint me as jealous, vindictive, attention-seeking. He asked if I had ever said mean things to Harper. I admitted I had, that siblings argue. He asked if I had been critical of Harper before. I said yes, that I had sometimes expressed concern about her choices. "So you admit to bullying your younger sister?" he said. "No. I admit to being honest with her sometimes. That is not bullying. You criticized her at Thanksgiving dinner in front of a guest. I made one comment about accountability. I did not attack her with furniture. But you provoked her. Words do not justify violence. Nothing I said justified this. I gestured to my body, to the brace still supporting my ribs. He kept pushing, trying to get me to lose my temper, to seem unreasonable. But I stayed calm. Dr. Marsh had prepared me for this. Finally, he asked, "Do you really believe your own sister tried to kill you?" I met his eyes. I believe my sister swung a chair at my chest, hard enough to break my ribs and collapse my lung. I believe I could have died, and I believe my parents told me to protect her instead of getting help. So yes, I believe she tried to kill me. Whether she meant to or not, that is what she did. Harper testified in her own defense. This was a risky move, Patricia had said, but Mr. Brennan probably felt he had no choice. Harper needed to seem sympathetic, remorseful. Harper cried on the stand. She said she was sorry, that she never meant to hurt me, that she just reacted without thinking. Lorna has always been perfect, she said through tears. I could never measure up. She always made me feel worthless. On Thanksgiving, I just snapped. I am so sorry. But on cross-examination, Rachel Torres destroyed her. She walked Harper through the audio recording, playing sections, and asking Harper to explain. You said, "I will kill you. Can you explain that?" I did not mean it literally. I was just angry. You said, "You have always been the favorite." But earlier you testified that Lorna bullied you. Which is it? Was she the favorite, or was she the bully? Harper stammered, contradicted herself. Rachel brought up the diary entry, the one where Harper bragged about pushing me down the stairs. You injured your sister before, and laughed about it. Is that correct? I do not remember that, but your roommate documented it. Were you lying to your roommate then? Or are you lying to this jury now? Harper's composure cracked. Lorna always got everything. Everyone always loved her more. I was just supposed to smile and take it. So you are admitting you resented your sister? Yes. I hated her. She ruined my life. The courtroom went silent. Harper realized what she had said. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. Rachel smiled coldly. No further questions. My parents testified for the defense, backing Harper's self-defense story. But Rachel played their depositions, where they had admitted under oath that Harper swung first. She asked them directly, "Are you lying now? Or were you lying in your deposition?" My father fumbled. Harper was provoked. That was not the question. Did you, or did you not, witness your daughter Harper swing a chair at your daughter Lorna, without Lorna touching her first? A long pause. Yes. And did you tell Lorna not to call the police? Yes. Did you tell her she would ruin the family if she told the truth? Yes. And after you learned Lorna might die in surgery, did you visit her in the hospital? No. Why not? We were dealing with Harper's arrest, so your daughter, who was assaulted and nearly died, was less important than your daughter who committed the assault. My father had no answer. Closing arguments came on the third day of trial. Mr. Brennan argued that this was a family tragedy, not a crime, that Harper deserved mercy and treatment, not prison. But Rachel Torres stood before the jury and held up the x-rays one more time. The defense wants you to believe Lorna provoked this, but I ask you, what words justify this? She pointed to the broken ribs on the screen. What criticism justifies collapsing someone's lung? What comment at dinner justifies nearly killing your sister? She pulled out one more piece of paper. This is the surgical assessment form from when Lorna went into emergency surgery. Right here, the surgeon checked a box that says, "Patient may not survive." Lorna's parents knew she might die. They knew that when they told her to lie, when they told her to protect Harper, that is not a family. That is a conspiracy to cover up attempted murder. Several jury members had tears in their eyes. Harper Collins is guilty, Rachel said. The evidence proves it beyond any reasonable doubt. I ask you to hold her accountable for what she did. For Lorna. For every other person Harper has hurt. And for the next person she will hurt if you do not stop her today. Thank you. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. We waited in a room down the hall. Patricia said 3 hours was a good sign. That it meant they were being thorough, not that there was disagreement. But every minute felt like an eternity. Finally, the bailiff came to get us. The jury had reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. Harper looked pale. My parents held hands. I gripped Marcus' hand so hard my knuckles turned white. The jury foreman stood. Judge Morgan asked, "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor, on the charge of aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury." "How do you find?" "We find the defendant guilty." The courtroom erupted. My mother screamed, "No, this is wrong! She is innocent!" Bailiffs moved toward her. My father sat frozen, his face gray. Harper collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder. I felt Marcus squeeze my hand. Patricia smiled. And I felt something I had not felt in months. Relief. Justice. Finally, justice. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks after the verdict. Those 2 weeks felt like holding my breath. Harper was remanded to custody immediately after the guilty verdict, which meant she was in jail awaiting sentencing. My parents tried to get her bail reinstated, but Judge Morgan denied it. Harper was a flight risk and had shown no remorse. Patricia continued working on the civil case. With the criminal conviction, Harper had essentially admitted guilt. The civil case would be much easier to win. We were suing for medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, and punitive damages. The total amount we were asking for was over $200,000. But Patricia had another idea. "What if we also sued your parents?" I stared at her. "My parents. They witnessed the assault and told you to cover it up. They intimidated you to prevent you from reporting a crime. They conspired to help Harper avoid consequences. That is criminal conspiracy and obstruction of justice. We can sue them civilly for their role in your harm." The idea was shocking, but also, somehow, right. They had enabled Harper. They had chosen her over me. Even when I was dying, they deserved to face consequences too. "Do it," I said. The sentencing hearing arrived on a gray April morning. The courtroom was packed. Victim impact statements were allowed, and I had prepared one. Patricia had helped me write it, but the words were mine. Judge Morgan asked if I wanted to speak before she imposed the sentence. I stood and walked to the podium. My hands shook as I held my written statement. "Your Honor, my name is Lorna Collins. I am Harper's older sister. On Thanksgiving, she broke 3 of my ribs and collapsed my lung with a dining chair. I had emergency surgery. I spent 8 days in the hospital. I could not work for 3 months. I still have pain. I will have scars for the rest of my life." I paused, looked at Harper. She would not meet my eyes. But the physical scars are not the worst part. The worst part is knowing my own family chose to protect the person who hurt me instead of helping me. The worst part is hearing my mother say she wished I had never been born. The worst part is realizing I spent my whole life trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it. My voice broke, but I kept going. Harper did not just hurt me that day. She has been hurting me for years. Pushing me downstairs, slamming doors on my hands, hitting me, threatening me, making my life miserable. And our parents covered for her every single time. They taught her that violence has no consequences. They taught her that she could hurt people and get away with it. And they almost taught me that my life does not matter, that I should accept abuse because keeping family peace is more important than keeping myself safe. I looked at the judge. "Your Honor, I am not asking you to punish Harper because I want revenge. I am asking you to hold her accountable, because if you do not, she will hurt someone else. She has hurt others before. She will hurt others again. Someone has to stop her, and since my parents refused to do it, that job falls to you." I sat down. Marcus squeezed my hand. I had said what I needed to say. Judge Morgan reviewed the evidence, the pre-sentencing report, the letters from Harper's supporters, and from her other victims. Then she addressed Harper directly. "Miss Collins, you nearly killed your sister." The medical testimony made clear that if she had waited even another hour to seek help, she might have died. "You showed no remorse. You blamed her for her own assault. Your parents enabled this behavior, teaching you that violence is acceptable if you are angry enough. But I am here to teach you something different." She paused. Let the words hang in the air. "You are sentenced to 5 years in state prison. You will be eligible for parole after serving 3 years, but only if you complete an intensive batterer intervention program and demonstrate genuine change. You are also ordered to pay full restitution to your sister for all medical expenses and lost wages, totaling $63,000. Do you understand this sentence?" Harper was sobbing too hard to answer. Her lawyer answered for her. "Yes, Your Honor. 5 years. Harper would be 30 years old when she got out. If she got out in 3, she would have a felony record. Her life would never be the same." My mother fainted in the courtroom. Bailiffs helped her out. My father sat motionless, staring straight ahead. I felt no joy, but I felt peace. Justice had been done. The civil case against Harper settled quickly. Her lawyer advised her to agree to pay the full amount we were asking for, rather than go through another trial. She had no money of her own, so my parents would have to pay it. They fought it, but eventually their lawyer convinced them they would lose if it went to trial. They settled for $185,000 to be paid over 5 years. But the civil case against my parents was just beginning. Patricia filed it in May. We sued them for conspiracy, witness intimidation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We asked for $75,000 in damages and a court order requiring them to never contact me again. They hired an expensive lawyer and tried to fight it. They claimed they were just trying to protect their family, that they had not intended to harm me, but the evidence was overwhelming. The recording of them telling me to lie, the text messages threatening me, their admission under oath that they had witnessed the assault and done nothing. Their lawyer eventually recommended they settle. In August, we reached an agreement. They would pay $75,000, admit in writing that they had conspired to help Harper avoid consequences and that their actions had caused me harm, and they would agree to a no-contact order. They were legally prohibited from contacting me in any way for the rest of my life. Signing that agreement felt like closing a door that had been open my whole life, a door I had kept hoping they would walk through and finally love me. They never would. And now, finally, I could stop hoping. I used the settlement money to pay off all my medical debt and start a savings account. For the first time in my life, I had financial security. I could breathe. Metaphorically and literally. Physically, I healed. By summer, I was back to work part-time. By fall, I was working full-time again. The pain in my ribs faded to an occasional ache when the weather changed. The scars on my chest turned from angry red to pale white. I would always have them, small reminders of what I had survived. But I found I did not mind them. They were proof I had fought back. Emotionally, healing took longer. I continued seeing Dr. Marsh every week. We worked through decades of conditioning, of believing I was worthless, of accepting crumbs of affection as love. It was hard work. There were setbacks. But slowly, I began to see myself differently, not as the scapegoat, not as the problem, but as a survivor. Marcus and I got married in September. A small ceremony in a garden, with 30 of our closest friends. Beth came, and Patricia, and Detective Reeves. Dr. Marsh was there. My cousin Jenna was there. Amanda, the roommate who had testified, came. Derek, Harper's ex-boyfriend, came. We had created a chosen family, people who loved us not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. There were no blood relatives at my wedding, and I did not miss them. Through Jenna, I heard updates about my parents. They had become pariahs in their small town. The trial had been covered extensively in the local news. People knew what they had done. My father lost several long-term clients at his accounting firm. My mother resigned from her church committee and book club after members confronted her. They tried to paint themselves as victims, but too many people had seen the trial, had heard the recordings, had seen the x-rays. Their golden child was in prison, and their other daughter wanted nothing to do with them. They had built a family on lies and favoritism, and it had collapsed under the weight of truth. I started a blog in October. I wrote about family estrangement, about being the scapegoat, about sibling abuse and parental enablement. I used my real name and told my real story. I was done hiding. The blog went viral. Within weeks, I had thousands of followers. People reached out from all over the country, all over the world, sharing their own stories of being scapegoated, of siblings who hurt them, of parents who chose the wrong child. I realized I was not alone. None of us were alone. I started speaking at domestic violence conferences, advocating for better recognition of sibling abuse. Most people think of abuse as something that happens between romantic partners or parents and children. They do not think about siblings. But sibling abuse is real and common and damaging. I wanted to change that conversation. In December, Marcus and I found out I was pregnant. The news terrified me at first. What if I repeated my parents' mistakes? What if I favored one child over another? What if I was a terrible mother? But Dr. Marsh reminded me of something crucial. You broke the cycle, Lorna. You chose truth over comfort. You chose yourself. Those are exactly the qualities that will make you a good mother. You know what not to do. You know how important it is to protect your children, all of your children. You will not repeat your parents' mistakes because you have done the work they refused to do. I decided that my child would never know Harper or my parents. Not out of spite, but out of protection. My child would grow up in a home where love did not hurt, where violence was not tolerated, where speaking the truth was valued over keeping the peace. My child would know they were safe, valued, loved unconditionally. Everything I never had. On the second anniversary of the attack, I went back to the courthouse. I stood outside the building where I had testified, where justice had been served, and I thought about how different my life was now. 2 years ago, I had walked into this building terrified, carrying x-rays of my broken ribs, wondering if anyone would believe me. I had been so afraid of destroying my family, of being alone, of facing the truth. But the truth had set me free. I took out my phone and posted to my blog. 2 years ago today, I chose myself for the first time in my life. It was the scariest and best decision I ever made. I lost my blood family, but gained a chosen family. I lost my parents' approval but gained my own self-respect. If you are reading this and you are afraid to speak up, afraid to leave, afraid to choose yourself, your life is worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. The people who truly love you will not punish you for protecting yourself. And if they do, they never loved you in the first place. The post got thousands of comments. People thanking me, sharing their own stories, saying I had given them courage. I read every single one and felt grateful. I placed my hand on my growing belly, felt the baby kick. In 4 months, I would be a mother. I would hold my child and promise them something my parents never promised me. I will always choose your safety over someone else's comfort. I will always believe you. I will always protect you. You will never have to break your own ribs to prove you matter. Marcus came out of the courthouse where he had been meeting with Patricia about finalizing some paperwork. He saw me standing there and smiled. Ready to go home. I took his hand. Yes, let's go home. I walked away from the courthouse, toward our car, toward our life, toward our future. I did not look back. I did not need to. That chapter was closed. The story of Lorna the scapegoat, Lorna the victim, Lorna the girl who accepted abuse because she thought it was love. Now I was writing a new story. Lorna the survivor, Lorna the wife, Lorna the mother, Lorna the advocate, Lorna who fought back and won. I had learned that family is not who shares your blood, but who chooses your well-being. I had learned that protecting abusers does not make you loyal. It makes you an accomplice to your own destruction. I had learned that the truth might destroy relationships, but lies destroy souls. Most importantly, I had learned that the moment you choose yourself, you stop being a victim and become a survivor. And survivors do not just survive. They build new lives, better lives, lives where love does not leave bruises and where silence is no longer the price of belonging. I got in the car. Marcus started the engine, and as we drove away, I felt something I had not felt in my entire childhood. Peace. Deep, lasting peace. I was free. Finally, completely free. And that freedom was worth every battle I had fought to earn it. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? How did you find the courage to put yourself first? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to hear more stories about survival, justice, and choosing yourself. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share this with them. Sometimes knowing we are not alone is the first step toward freedom. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it brought you comfort, hope, or the courage to make whatever choice you need to make. You deserve to be safe, you deserve to be loved, and you deserve to choose yourself. Take care of yourselves out there.